Hey everybody, happy Sunday and welcome to episode 11 of the Stock Trading Pit Season 4. This is the last episode in this season, so we have a lot to go over. Let's jump right into it. The first segment that we have is Talking with Traders with Dan and our guest Jonah Lupton to talk a little bit about the FinTwit conference coming up in October. Segment 2 is going to be the broad market recaps, going over the broad market ETFs, metals, and some crypto names. Segment 3 is going to be the watch list with our guest Julia Cordova and myself. And segment 4 is going to be the weekend chart requests. So sit back, relax, and let's jump right into it.
Hey everyone, Dan here, and this is another episode of Talking with Traders. Today we got something a little bit different for you. I've got a special guest, the one, the only, the great Jonah Lupton. Jonah, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely. So for those who don't know, Jonah is one of the greats of FinTwits, and he's doing something that's much needed and long overdue for the community. He's putting on the first in-person event for FinTwits in Orlando. We're going to get to that a lot in a minute, but really quick, Jonah, how about Upstart? Wow.
Upstart is carrying my portfolio right now. Coming into the year, I did a write-up on Upstart back in December, right after they came public. The stock was in the 30s at the time. So my first add in my portfolio was around 38. And I've added a lot over the last 7 or 8 months, but even I never expected what this company has delivered. I think the stock's now up about 385% year to date because they just keep on beating their numbers and they keep on raising guidance. When they went public, they had 10 bank partners. They're now up to 25 bank partners. When they went public, I think they were expecting around 330 million for revenue this year. They've already guided up to 750 million of revenue for this year. And, you got gross margins at 84%. You got contribution rates over 50. They are just crushing it right now. And they're just beginning to scratch the surface of what is possible when you use AI models in the credit markets. And right now they're doing personal loans, and they've started to get into auto loans. And the thought is that eventually they'll get into home loans and credit cards and other verticals. So I'm still, even with the stock up 385% year to date, it's still only trading at about 25 times EV over gross profit. So I think if you look a lot of the, even on valuation metrics, the stock still looks pretty reasonable.
It's also got a beautiful chart.
Oh my God. Yeah. So the last 3 days have been unbelievable. The stock, I'm just looking at the chart right now. So they reported earnings on Tuesday afternoon, and the stock went into the print at around high 130s, somewhere between 138 and 140, I think. And now we're touching 200 as we're recording this. So that is quite the move in 3 days.
It's wild. They beat estimates for their earnings by 150%.
Oh, they crushed it.
Crushed it.
Absolutely crushed it. Their year over year numbers are just mind boggling. And I know that, last year during the pandemic, loan volumes declined. So, there's probably some slightly easy year over year comps. But even if you look at quarter over quarter, they're growing 60% quarter on quarter. And 1,000% year over year. So doesn't matter how you try to slice it, they're crushing it. So kudos to their team. It's funny, I was talking to Dan Loeb the other day, who runs Third Point, the hedge fund, and they actually invested in Upstart's Series C round 8 or 9 years ago at 120 million. So, and he took that position into the IPO. I believe he's still holding the whole thing, and he's been adding to it as well. So kudos to him. He got in 8 years before me.
That's amazing. It's a great story. It's a great
Huge.
Stock.
Yep.
It on a chart, right? It did its thing where it shook a lot of people out, and the sentiment got pretty negative for a while.
Yep.
And then from there it kind of just poof and goes right into earnings and
because right after the stock ripped after they reported Q1 earnings, it got all the way up to about 190, but then everyone started talking about the stock, the post IPO lockup expiration. And then everyone started to panic and sell it. So it ended up going from 190 all the way down to 108, 109 after expiration. And it really went sideways for probably a month or so. And that's probably when it shook out a lot of people that lost patience, or they were afraid it was going to, break down below 100 and go fill in the gaps at like 60 to 80. I heard that, those rumblings on Twitter. I heard rumblings about a short report, and, a lot of people were sick of the stock or didn't like the risk reward, bailed on it. But we certainly got rewarded a couple days ago.
That's why they call it shaking out weak hands. Happens all the time.
And I gotta believe that. I mean, we could easily rip another 10% next week, because you're starting to get all the analysts upgrading the stock, raising their price targets. There's still a lot of big money funds that probably haven't even gotten into the stock yet. So you're going to see some accumulation from the institutional investors. So I don't think we're going to, we might pull back 10 or 15% in the next few weeks at some point, but I don't think we're going back anywhere near 150 anytime soon.
No, like they say, strong stocks go up, right?
Yep.
Well, very cool. Thanks for sharing that one. That's a stock that a lot of people are watching, and a lot of people missed. I missed it too, right? I was watching it and kind of just got disillusioned with the price action and forgot about it, right? And then I'm like, oh, okay, Jonah was right.
So so what I'm telling myself, okay, how do I find the next upstart, right? Like what was the story that was good, that I, originally liked it back in December, but then that story got 10 times better over the next 6 months. And, how do we find other stocks, that could potentially do something like this? And it's hard. Like my two favorite stocks right now are Upstart and Celsius. And then like, there's a big drop off, between them and my next favorite group of stocks. Cause I just think Upstart and Celsius are, like, their fundamentals are so insanely strong right now and getting better. It's just hard to find stocks with accelerating revenues. Like that's kind of like that's the magic formula, right? Accelerating revenues, which leads to multiple expansion. You get those two things together in the same stock, and that's where you really find these massive returns, 100, 200, 300% in a short period of time. But it's hard to find those stocks. Like, they're just not that obvious. I keep running all these screens looking for stocks that might have some revenue acceleration at reasonable multiples, and they're hard to find. Like, they're not. So I got to keep digging a little bit harder.
Yeah, no, it's that's how you get the 100 baggers, right? Like, you need the multiple expansion and
Exactly.
and the earnings growth together.
Right. Yep. Agreed.
So let's talk about the conference, right? I'm sure a lot of people are curious. There hasn't been a FinTwits conference before. What made you want to start one?
So I jumped onto FinTwit probably last March or April. When the pandemic started, I wasn't able to run my business at the time. I had been doing a lot of traveling for that business, so I was kind of stuck at home with a lot more free time, trading my own stock portfolio. And then I jumped on Twitter and found that there was a lot of other people talking about stocks and trading. So I was kind of late to that FinTwit party on Twitter. I think a lot of people have been on there for many, many years, and I just wasn't part of that. But as I joined Twitter, I'd already been on Twitter, but joined this community and really started building friendships with people. And we spend a lot of time, as you know, hours and hours and hours a day on Twitter, talking about stocks, sharing our research, sharing our charts, sharing our investment thesis. We all do spaces, and we have YouTube channels and Substack newsletters. And I think we've learned a lot from each other over these last couple of years, but most of us have never met each other in person. And it just seemed like once, as the pandemic is hopefully coming to an end, it made sense to try to put together an in-person event where we could, all meet up in one location and spend a weekend, talking to each other and, sharing some laughs and sharing some drinks. So what we're doing in October, so it's Columbus Day weekend. That is Friday, October 8th until Sunday, October 10th. We're going to do this FinTwit conference in Orlando at the JW Marriott Hotel. And if you go to our website, so if you go to FinTwit2021.com, that's the website we built. It has the schedule, the speakers, the sponsors. Shout out to TrendSpider for being a sponsor. And then the links to purchase tickets, as well as links to reserve your hotel room. So we negotiated with the hotel, and it's actually 2 hotels. So there's the Ritz-Carlton and the JW Marriott. They're right next to each other. They're called sister properties. And then you have the conference center kind of right between the 2 of them. So that's where we'll actually have the event on that Saturday. And then Friday night, we're going to have a cocktail party in the Citrus Garden at the JW Marriott. Like I said, Saturday, we're going to have 4 hours of the speaking events in the morning. And then Saturday afternoon, we'll probably do like a pool party, golfing event. Saturday night, we might do some sort of a nightclub or a lounge event. Sunday morning, we'll do a roundtable discussion out in the garden. So we'll have 15 or 20 different tables set up, and each table will have a different topic, dark pools, options, crypto, whatever you want. And we'll have someone hosting each of those different discussions. And then Sunday afternoon, we'll probably go to a local sports bar and watch the football games together. So it's a weekend that's kind of combining, some education, listening to some great speakers. We have 10 speakers already, but combining that with the social aspect. It's really, I think that's why most of us are coming there together in the first place, is to meet each other, to network, and to finally put some faces to the Twitter handles.
That's awesome. There's so many people I'd love to meet in person. That's why I was ecstatic when I heard about this. I think this is something that's been discussed a lot over the years, but nobody's had, the cojones to like actually do it. Right. I just want to say thanks for the initiative on it. Right.
You have to be a little crazy. I started reaching out to these hotels by myself, not really knowing what I was doing. I built a spreadsheet and I was reaching out, calling all the hotels, trying to talk to the event managers, writing down all the details. And that was horrible. And then thankfully an event planner reached out to me and offered to help. So she's been doing a lot of the negotiating for me, and she found this hotel and we negotiated a phenomenal rate. So $239 a night is the price at either hotel. We still have about 50% of the rooms. That's an amazing price. I think if you try to go book the Ritz right now, you're going to, for that weekend, I think the rates are somewhere in the $550 to $600 range. So $239 is a phenomenal price. And I'm thankful that she was able to get that price for us, except we only have the rooms blocked off until September 17th. So if anyone is planning to come to the event and they need hotel rooms and you want to get that $239 price locked in, you have to do it before September 17th. So that gives you, let's call it 5 weeks, a little less than 5 weeks from now to book your rooms. And then the tickets are $175, and that really just covers the food and beverage. So that Saturday, we're doing a breakfast buffet and then a lunch buffet, before and after all of the speaking stuff. And all of that food and beverage is included in that ticket price, along with any room fees that we have to pay, and the audio visual expenses and recording. And there's a lot of other little expenses that go with it. So, I'm not making any money on this. There's probably a good chance I'm going to lose money on it, but I'm just asking for everyone to kind of cover their own cost, and that allows us to put this thing together.
Yeah, no, it's a great deal. Usually conferences cost thousands for a ticket.
Oh, yeah.
And the hotels are not nearly as discounted. So I think it's a great deal. I'm excited to be there. Like I already booked all our hotels. Jake's going to be there with me. A bunch of us TrendSpider people are going to come hang out.
Awesome.
And I'm pumped to meet everybody. I'm just curious. When did you decide to do it? Like when was that moment when I was like, I'm going to pull this together? Because it's come together so fast.
Yeah, it's a good question. It did come together pretty fast. I knew that I had to move fast if we were going to do this in the fall. Because me and Jake and you have talked about doing something. We thought about Florida, we thought about Vegas, and when I looked at the calendar, you had this 3-day long weekend in October, which just seemed like the perfect time to do it. Summer's over, the kids are back in school. And for people that live in colder states, it's probably starting to get a little bit cooler, but it's also cool down in Florida. I don't want to, I wouldn't want to do this event down in Florida in the middle of the summertime. It's just too hot. but in October, it should be around like 80 degrees, which is kind of perfect weather, especially if we're going to be doing some stuff outside. So I knew that if I was going to do it that weekend, I had to give myself at least 3 or 4 months to start planning it and to start promoting it, lock down the speakers, lock down the sponsors, get everyone to help, kind of push the word of mouth out there, because I don't want to get stuck paying for 50 rooms, because not enough people booked them. So we have 350 rooms blocked off. So obviously my goal is to get to that 350 number. Otherwise, I'm on the hook for some. But, I think a lot of people are waiting. They're going to try to wait until the last minute because they want to see what the status of COVID is down in Florida. So I'm just, I don't think we're going to require vaccinations, but I would love it if everyone coming was vaccinated. I just think it takes some of the anxiety away from others, and it'll just create a safer environment for all of us. So hopefully, the numbers in Florida are on the decline in the near future, and then hopefully they're much, much lower when we get to October. We're still 2 months away from the event. And I do think vaccinations in Florida have been on the rise because people are obviously scared of this this Delta variant. So, hopefully everything's lining up for, a safe and fun weekend for all of us.
Hopefully. I think though it's important that as COVID fades, right, like we start to get back to normal life. Like it's probably never going to be gone, right? But life is short, right? So to meet all of you guys, I'm more than happy to go down to Florida, and hopefully people watching here will decide to go too. So
Yep,
any last words about the event you want to throw out there?
That's pretty much it. Definitely check out the website. We have I think we've announced 8 speakers so far, and I'm lining up a couple more, hopefully female speakers. Like I've actually reached out to 5 or 6 females about speaking at the event, and they just, unfortunately, most of them were busy that weekend, so I haven't been able to confirm any, but I do have a couple that think they can do it. So we should have all 10 speakers hopefully locked down by the end of next week. I think we have 11 or 12 sponsors now, which are also posted on the website. So TrendSpider is obviously one of them, StockTwits, Substack, Motley Fool, Koifin. Like we have some really great sponsors, and they're all throwing in about $5,500 each, which is covering the rest of the food and beverage, the AV. So, this event would not be happening without those sponsors. So I think they deserve a lot of credit as well. Obviously, thank you to TrendSpider. You guys are one of the sponsors. So, you guys really stepped up right away, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I agree. There's a great crowd, right? And none of it would happen without you. So thanks for putting it on, Jonah. I appreciate it. For those watching, we're gonna have in the description for this video links to the FinTwits 2021 website, links to the schedule page that'll have the agenda, and also to Jonah's Twitter in case you want to follow him and keep up with him. Jonah's a great guy. So.
Thanks. Or just ask me if you have any questions about the event. I'm pretty sure my email address is on that website, and my DMs on Twitter are always open. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them off to me. Happy to answer.
All right. Definitely. Thank you again, Jonah.
You got it. Take care, guys. Have a good one.
Alrighty, let's check out some broad market ETFs, some metals, and some crypto as we always do. Starting with SPY, really just a melt up this week. Just not really any huge days, just constant kind of grinding higher. And that's kind of the definition of a melt up. So it seems like we're melting up right here. But honestly, if you look at the weekly chart, we could melt up a lot more. If you look at this ascending wedge here, you can see resistance is way up here, right around, let's say 460 above. So, this blue circle that I just highlighted, that would be your potential resistance. And you can see here, we have quite a bit of room to melt up. So a lot of people are saying, oh, August is volatile. August is this, August is that. Well, last year, August was a very strong month of the year for the broad markets. And it looks like we're having that again. Now, going into the seasonality, looking at the week of year seasonality, going into the next 2 weeks, we have an 80% win rate over the last 5 years. So not only do we have the technical setup, we also have very strong seasonality going into the next 2 weeks. So SPY is looking very strong here, but the Qs are also looking strong. If we look at this daily chart, you can see here that we've got a really strong ascending triangle forming here. We've got the volume shelf from this July 19th low. That's where we're starting the anchor point. And you'll see here on the weekly chart, once again, we're trading right at this 1.618 extension. You can see here that we do have this green shaded area to highlight some of those wicks that didn't exactly touch perfectly with the 1.618 extension. But overall, the last 3 weeks, we have really just been hanging out right at this level. And looks like we may be ready for new highs, especially if we break out of this ascending triangle on the daily. Going into the week of year seasonality, 80% and 80% going into the next 2 weeks. So definitely looking very strong into the second half of August. Now, going into IWM is definitely having some trouble here. You'll see here that on the daily chart, we still have this ascending triangle forming. Now, we are starting to near the support below. And so if we did break down through, let's say, 215, 216 and close below this solid green line, that's when things definitely start to get a little interesting. But until then, we are still holding within this ascending triangle. Now, on the weekly side of things, we talked about this volume shelf last week and really talking about if you anchor the volume shelf, the anchored volume by price from the COVID lows, you'll see here that this area highlighted in orange is your break-even supply. So we moved right up to that last week. And then this week, we were rejected right at that area. This area just has been a tough spot for the price to get through over the last several months at this point. Now, going into the next week, we have a 60% win rate, but then going into the week after that, we have a 100% win rate. So going into the end of August, we've got some pretty strong seasonality. So pretty much all the broad market ETFs, at least SPY, QQQ, and IWM, are all looking very strong. Now, from a technical standpoint, IWM definitely is looking the weakest, but with the seasonality, it does show a little bit of strength. So we'll have to see what happens. Now, going into some of the metals, GLD and SLV just got absolutely destroyed this week. We tried to maybe have a little bit of a recovery here. The last 4 days of the week, we did move up pretty strong, but you'll see here that this previous support area acting as what would be resistance above if we got back up to that area highlighted by this this red square, rectangle, whatever you want to call it, that would be the area to possibly get through. So as always, just go in, right click, create an alert at this line. And then if we get anywhere around this line, you'll be alerted. And then you'll know, okay, it's time to get back to the chart and see what's going on. Now, on the weekly side of things here, if we look at the anchored VWAP from the 2018 lows, but then also the COVID, not the COVID lows, the 2019 lows. You can see here that I've kind of created a little bit of a anchored VWAP handoff here. You'll see here that pretty much we've got this volume shelf forming. So let's actually get rid of these. I actually accidentally did this wrong way. So if we anchor the VWAP from the COVID low candle here, you'll see here that we're definitely below the volume weighted average price from the COVID lows shown by this blue line, but we did bounce off this volume shelf here nicely this week and pretty much closed almost at the high of the week. So all in all, definitely a better end to the week than we started with that huge gap down. And for now, it is holding where it needs to. Now, if you look at SLV, a little bit of a different picture here. On SLV, you'll see here we've pretty much got the same exact setup, but a little different. You've got the support that broke down. We did move up to possibly test that support above, shown by this this red shaded area, and we almost hit it on the dot. So same thing, if you wanted to create an alert or some sensitivity around that line, that would be a great area to watch going into the week ahead. Now, on the weekly side of things, here's the COVID lows. This is what I messed up on GLD. The COVID lows right here, you can see the anchored VWAP. We did close below it. We do have a relatively strong hammer here on the weekly chart, but I prefer to see a green hammer than a red hammer. In this case, we have a red hammer. We've got the gap down on the weekly. So just keep that in mind. If we did continue up, you have a couple gaps above. So you've got, if we turn on the gap snake here, you'll see that we've got one gap, two gaps, 3 gaps above. So those range from around 22.40 to around 23.25, all the way up to around 25, 25. So 3 gaps above shown by the gap snake, and we'll have to see how that plays out into the coming weeks and probably even month, because this is definitely a longer term breakdown with that close below the COVID low anchored VWAP. Now going into seasonality here for SLV, you'll see here that we do have a slight uptick, but then going into September, we do have some pretty weak months with a 40% win rate and a 0% win rate over the last 5 years. So keep that in mind with SLV. Now going into Bitcoin, it almost seems like crypto is really taking the show away from some of these metals that historically are good for inflation. It looks like crypto is kind of playing out as the inflation play. Now on Bitcoin, you can see here that we do have the all-time high anchored VWAP. So I think we talked about this last week, where we have the all-time high anchored VWAP, and then we have a 7.5% offset. This thick red line here highlights where we actually were rejected after breaking back above this anchored VWAP from the all-time high. So if I make this a little smaller so you can see it, you'll see here that we've got one time back in late April, and then one time in early May where we did break above, but didn't break above 7.5%. So this thick red line is just 7.5% above the all-time high anchored VWAP. And that was what we were watching last week. You can see that we pretty much nailed it right on the head. And then finally, we're starting to break out this week. So some pretty strong price action here. And we'll have to see if we continue up. This is the 4th red week in a row. If you look back, the last time we had 4 red weeks in a row, we did have a pretty big flush. So keep that in mind, but we did continue higher after that. So the fact that we are above the all-time high anchored VWAP is definitely something on the bull case side of things. Daily side of things, you can see we do have this ascending wedge. We'll have to see which way the price goes. And there is definitely a lot of room left to kind of move up within this ascending wedge before we did break to the upside or the downside. So we could go something like this. We could literally go all the way to the end. So we'll have to see how that plays out into the coming weeks. Now, Ethereum looks very similar, so there's not a lot of difference between these two charts. You actually have this ascending wedge here on Ethereum as well. Nice bounce off the ascending wedge support. And if we did continue up, the resistance above is right around 3,500, 3,600. 3,500 would be your psychological level above as well, just that even, nice round, even number. So on the weekly side of things, you can see here the all-time highs. Anchored VWAP, we are a little bit of ahead of the game here. We did break out above the all-time high anchored VWAP on Ethereum quicker than we did on Bitcoin. And you can see here that this is definitely breaking last week's highs. So that's definitely bullish. We do have 4 green weeks in a row, but if you look back in April into May, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green weeks in a row. So that's something to consider, that in this case, Ethereum has shown that it can definitely move up more than just 4 green weeks in a row. Going into the week ahead, though, you can see that we only have a 20% win rate. And that's one of the weakest win rates of all the weeks since 2016. So something to consider, that we are moving into a historically weak week of the year. So that is the broad markets. Hopefully this was helpful understanding kind of what's going on the broad market side of things in the stock market, but also looking at crypto and metals, because these do kind of influence just the overall perspective and sentiment in the markets. Especially with crypto, you've definitely got more of a risk off type of approach when crypto is moving up. And so that's kind of right in line with how the markets look too, with more upside possibly to go. So that is it for the broad markets. Let's move on to the next segment. Alrighty, welcome to the watch list segment with our special guest, Julia Cordova. She's actually a first-time guest on the show, so really excited to look at some different stocks that she's taking a look at into the next few days, coming weeks. And Julia, thank you so much for being on, and looking forward to getting a little bit of a bird's eye view into what you're looking at into the future.
Thank you for having me on, Jake. I really appreciate it. It's nice to talk with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are we looking at today?
So I asked the Twitterverse some different symbols that they'd like me to chart. And one of the ones that I got the most likes, one of the most popular ones was, I guess it's called Excella. And I don't even know what they do. And I guess I don't even care. But what I went ahead and did is sort of the way that I chart is I look for channel lines that are repeatable slopes that the algos, at least in my view, tend to respect. So, I mean, I went ahead and just slapped some very basic lines on here, a down slope, this blue one here, and an upslope, the red. And you can see, I mean, you know, if I was trying to, and I think a lot of technicians do try to do this, they try to make everything look super perfect and they change the lines just to match. But I like this one in particular because we're sort of close to, I think, a logical stopping out place for somebody who'd like to sort of venture in. And then potentially because it's, whenever it starts to enter in, you see it does kind of nothing a lot, but whenever it starts to enter into one of these phases of more volatility, it's a nice opportunity to potentially make some, I don't want to say quick money, but to get a move off of it that is more volatile and quicker. So I personally like it here anywhere above this red. I like it here for a quick jump to the blue if it can hold the red.
Mm-hmm. And I like that you said that because, you know, a lot of people will say, well, you know, you said it was going to go up or whatever. And you kind of just said, if it holds the red, then look at the blue, kind of like an if then statement where, you know, if this level holds, then look at the level to the upside. So I love that you said that because a lot of people, you know, I think get so tied to a thesis that even if a level breaks down, they don't even, you know, they just are like, well, it's still a good hold.
Yeah, and well, I will say though, the way that my lines are created though are usually about closes. So it has to close. It can go below the red, but it has to close above the red, right? Or sorry, well, I mean, yeah, it has to continue closing above the red in order for it to stay valid. Yeah,
makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the red is closed through, it looks like you've got that gap highlighted below.
Yeah, so this would sort of be a next. I find that, and I mean, you guys have a gap detector, which is super nice, but I find that gaps, whether they're filled or unfilled, provide really nice support and resistance for when something gets there. So I've got this sort of as a, hey, you know, if it falls through here and it isn't what I call fakey breaky, if it falls through here, then this would be I mean, if you're short, for example, this would be a nice place to cover. Or if you're looking to get long and you didn't take, you know, you wanted something that's not so twitchy, because I mean, if you're holding this throughout the day, I'm sure it's like, you know, with your stomach. So that might be a good place to sort of get on board in a longer term. If you believe in the technology, if you have some fundamental reason you want to trade this, or if you're just looking for something to, you know, something to get on a dip, that kind of thing, I would set alerts for these lines as well.
Makes sense to me.
All right.
Well, that is is it XELA?
XELA, and I have no idea how to Excella, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't even know what they do.
Hey, I love it. I love it. That's how you keep emotion out of it. So what's the next one on the list?
Okay. Folks were asking me about Moderna, and I mean, it's had a crazy couple of days down here, but it actually is a really beautiful channel that it's in right now. So, you know, I actually made this chart yesterday, and then today it perfectly followed off of it. It's what day is today? Thursday. So yep. For now, we've got still a bounce off of this line here, and really anywhere in this up channel is, of course, going up. And then I have sort of a redemption dotted line here associated with the lows that potentially, if it broke through here, it's going to have around the 369 level. It's going to have some support. And as long as it, again, holds, I mean, especially if it's a double support, you know, especially if it were to hit here, for example, on Monday or something, then I would say, yeah, you know what? Why not? Small position. Let's see what happens. But the trend has been up until this week, and then it's sort of is it or isn't it? So we're going to see very soon. But if this dotted line breaks, and then this sort of double, you can see where I got it from, right? So I was looking at this slope here is our crazy slope, and then all the way from here, this is sort of the support zone, big picture uptrend. So if it gets below this line, is it going to go boom, boom all the way down to, I think, this gap down here.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And, that's quite the confluence there. The previous resistance now acting as support, and then that support channel there too. So that's definitely kind of make or break territory.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Okay. And I'm going to skip to Wish here because even though I like this company longer term, there's not a great immediate setup. So it's kind of one of those you put in, if you really like it, put in your account, leave it alone. But it's not anything that's like, wow, okay, there's a setup. But Wish does have a setup. It really tanked today. Is that just today? Is that what happened today? Look.
Yeah, that was after hours. Well, after hours earnings.
So it was on support and then it went down. So yeah. So where is that right now? That's like 757. That's like right about here. Yeah. So it looks like see, it's at the previous low right now. It looks like, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right on it.
That's interesting. Well, there you go. I mean, I love how market makers do that. I love that they, they'll leave it right, like, is it or isn't it, right before earnings, so that they're such jerks, aren't they? Like, because seriously, it's like right off of support here, and then they just, they're such jerks. They're such jerks, but it does make sense that it's holding up around, or at least that it's hit these lows here. So we'll see if it can hold. Okay. And
Wish is one. I had Wish until it kind of started breaking down today. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to play my luck into earnings. And thank goodness I got out, because that would have hurt. So I think a lot of people are pretty tied up into the fundamental story there, but we always have to remember, price action over anything. And I think that was a good example of that one today.
So what do they, I think I even looked this up because so many people ask me for it. There's some kind of like commerce,
like
online
commerce?
I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people are like saying it's the next Amazon, that type of thing. And, one thing that kind of turned me off a little bit to it was just the fact that, I was charting it, I was trading it, and people were like, hey, just a heads up, I've used Wish and I got a counterfeit product, and I've reached out to, customer service and all this, and they haven't even responded. So this definitely was by no means a fundamental play for me. It was a technical play, but the fact that, you've got people, real life situations dealing with that, going into an earnings release, I was like, you know what, I'll fall on my sword, take my loss, and not look back. And I am glad I did. So hopefully it bounces back for those still in it. But, like you said, that previous low is pretty much a perfect level for people to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's already, who knows if it'll hold there or not. But yeah, I'm noticing, just because the market is so wacky, I'm noticing a lot of these companies that are really pooping when they have the earnings, or at least bouncing back a little bit the next day, a little bit at least. Okay.
Yep.
But then the next one I did was Palantir. And, this one too, it's sort of I'm going to add some lines. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, why not? So I would say, if I were looking to take a long position in this company, I would sort of see how it behaves tomorrow above this first line, and then set my stop on a close below this second line, just based on, what I've seen here. It's like once it breaks below these, it's no bueno. So hopefully it stays above this line and then goes up.
Yeah, quite a move after earnings. You had the gap and go, and then kind of a pullback there. So we'll have to see what happens. But, definitely opposite of Wish, that's for sure. So that's definitely a positive that we went up instead of down, in case someone was in Wish and PLTR. So
oh my goodness,
definitely a better look than Wish. Looks like we've got one more. So the best for last. What are we seeing on this last one here?
Oh boy. Well, I think this is a good one. Looks
great.
A friend of mine texted me. It's like, what do you think of this one? And I don't think that he ever even said anything about it on Twitter, but I kind of like it because it's got really nice channels here, and where if it stays, as long as it stays above, good. As long as it stays below, bad. But it's peaking out here for a breakout. And anytime something kind of pops back in and then pops out pretty quickly, then I kind of consider that the opposite of what I'd call a fakey breaky or a fake breakout. A fake breakout would be very bearish. But if it looks like, oh, it's a fake, if it's a fakey, but then it comes back and it's like, oh, no, I wasn't, then that's like usually super bullish. So we'll have to see, but I'm going to go ahead and use, this line here as a stop out. And because this is sort of the crazy line here. And I'm planning on going long tomorrow if I can get a good price on it.
Nice. And just curious, when you're looking at taking a trade, are you mostly focusing on the daily chart or the weekly chart, or is there a mix of timeframes that kind of that need to align for you to enter a trade, or how does that work?
That is a really good question. So I do sort of a weekly market prep session for folks on YouTube, and I always start out by looking at the. Sometimes I look at the monthly, depending on where we are, but I always start out by looking at the weekly and then drilling down into the daily. My favorite ones I'm using daily here today for these equities, but my favorite ones for sort of in like I'd say scalps for 1 or 2 days are looking at the weekly and the 4 hour. Those are my two very favorites. But yeah, I love to start out. Because if you make a mistake or you don't have optimal entry, but you at least know you're with the longer term trend, it's going to give you a little more confidence to follow your plan and not, just kind of panic if something goes bad. So I always like to start out by looking at the bigger picture. This is so far a downtrend, right? So, something I might do would be to potentially just have a third of a position, see how that behaves, and then if it looks like it's going to start to get some real upside here, I do like it right now. If it looks like it's going to start to get some more upside, then I'll add to the position on a back test or just on momentum and then cross my fingers. So
Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on and showing some of these different names. And it's awesome that you kind of asked the community what they were wanting to see. So hopefully this was helpful for those that did check out Julia's post about what they wanted to see this weekend. And Julia, thank you so much for being a guest and coming on and going over these charts, and really hope we can have you on again soon.
Thank you again for having me, Jake. I really appreciate it. And I really liked using your software. I hadn't used it too much, and it was really easy. It was pretty intuitive. So I appreciate the opportunity to use it.
Hey, you're very welcome, and looking forward to getting some of those things that you're really wanting to see on the platform. And as always, we're always trying to improve the platform and add new things. So definitely think you'll be happy with some of the new improvements and updates coming through.
Yay. All right. Thank you, Jake.
You're very welcome. All right, everyone, that is it for the watch list. Let's move on to the next segment. Alrighty, let's look at the weekend chart request. We've got 5 today. We've got Zoom, Disney, AMD, Penn, and PLTR to go over. So starting with Zoom, you can see here that if you remember, honestly, maybe a couple months ago or more, we were really talking about this swing high anchored VWAP, this all-time high anchored VWAP with this offset here. So if we right click, go to properties here, you can see that I've added a 5% offset above that anchored VWAP. So what that means is it means that there's been times where the price has broken above the all-time high anchored VWAP, but you can see multiple times where we did respect about 5% above that anchored VWAP shown by this red shaded area. So once again, over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we were rejected there again, pulled back, and now we're trading right at this swing low anchored VWAP from May. And you can see here that this is kind of make or break. If we start to break down, then things get a little iffy, and who knows, we could even move all the way back down to maybe this area below, let's say right around 345 or so. So 345, if the anchored VWAP does break below, would be the area that I would be watching for possibly the next level of potential support. And then on the weekly chart, not much more to add here other than you can see kind of the weekly candles respecting this anchored VWAP really nicely as well. On the seasonality side, Zoom hasn't been around that long, so we don't have a lot on the seasonality side of things to look at. Now, going into Disney, this is one that also has this weird anchored VWAP area that has been respected now multiple times. So you can see here back in July, we did move right up to this anchored VWAP. We moved up a little bit above it. And then you can see here that literally on Friday, we moved right up to this area. We did break a little bit above it, but not too much before kind of getting faded all the way down throughout the day, possibly almost filling this gap into next week. We'll have to see what happens. But for now, that all-time high anchored VWAP with the percent offset, this red shaded area is once again acting as resistance. Now, on the weekly side of things, you can see here that we've got this huge anchored VWAP pinch here. If we add the anchored volume by price from the October 2020 pivot, you'll see here that we do have quite a big volume shelf here. We did kind of launch off of it this week, but we had trouble kind of holding that. And that was kind of right in line, as I mentioned, with that anchored VWAP and that anchored VWAP zone above. So all in all, Disney on the week of year seasonality, not really going into the strongest time of the year. You can see a lot of 20% win rates. So definitely going into a little bit of a weaker time of the year for Disney. And we'll see if the good earnings offsets that, or if we're just going to have trouble going into the weeks and months ahead. AMD is the next one. This is one that had really just a textbook perfect move on Friday. So you'll see here that if we have the swing low and the swing high anchored VWAPs, you can see we have this little pinch forming. And if we turn on the volume by price on the daily chart, you'll see here that, oh, if I can get it. Oh, my computer's going crazy here. One second. Let me turn it off on this side. Let me set that up. All right. There we go. And so you'll see here that pretty much, if we anchor the volume by price from the swing low, we had this volume shelf forming, we had the anchored VWAP there, and we moved up right to the all-time high anchored VWAP before getting rejected. So just a really good case study on using these anchored VWAPs from a swing low and a swing high, and you'll see the price really respect this a lot. Now, on the weekly chart, we've got the ascending triangle breakout that's been going on for the last couple weeks. And you can see here that this will be the fourth week in a row that we closed green. And we'll have to see if we can kind of continue to move up this wick from the week prior, which we tested the 122 or so area above. So all in all, these semi names are still looking pretty strong after this longer term breakout, especially on AMD. Going into the next couple weeks, 80% win rate and a 100% win rate for AMD over the last 5 years. So going into a very strong, historically strong time of the year with the technical setup, with this volume shelf forming, this could definitely be one that makes a pretty big move into the coming weeks if those two things align, the technicals and the seasonality. Going into PIN National Gaming, this is one that actually was looking pretty decent. And then just had a pretty rough Friday, but honestly, kind of a weird day in the market on Friday to kind of look at everything and then go through and say, okay, well, the broad markets looked okay, but the individual names did have some weird kind of price action here. So all in all, you can see here that we did have this bull flag breakout. And you can also see that, we did kind of break out on Thursday. We pulled back, and then you can see now that we're maybe retesting that flag support below. Now, on the weekly side of things, you'll see that if we anchor the volume by price from the COVID lows, we do have this kind of mini volume shelf forming here. So something to keep in mind going into the next couple weeks ahead. And on the seasonality side, going into the next week, we have a 100% win rate for PIN. So we have the seasonality there. We have the weekly candle setting up on the shelf. All in all, looking relatively strong going into the week ahead after that bull flag breakout. So all in all, bull flag breakout on the daily, kind of retesting that support on Friday. And then we do have that bigger volume shelf on the weekly side of things with that recent falling wedge breakout. The anchored VWAP above is right around $88, $89, give or take. The next one is PLTR. This is one that finally got some moves here. The main area that, a lot of people were watching above was just simply the gap above. So if we turn on the gap snake, you can see here that we have this gap below, that we gapped up from earnings, and then we also have the gap above that we actually did fill. So technically, we only now have a gap below. The gap above did fill, as you can see by this candle, and relatively strong day for PLTR after a pretty big pullback and then closing near probably the top quarter of the range of the day. Now, on the weekly side of things, if we anchor the volume by price from the IPO, you'll see here that we do have this huge volume shelf here. This is going to act as initial supply. We'll see if we can get through it. And if it does get through, then that's when things will get interesting, and this possibly could turn into kind of a base for price to move up higher. But for now, we're kind of stuck right within this point of control volume shelf here, and we'll have to see what happens into the next couple weeks. Once again, not a lot of seasonality because this hasn't been around. This hasn't been trading that long, so we don't have a lot of seasonality to look at. So that is all for the chart requests. That is all for season 4. We are done with season 4's stock trading pit. Thank you all for tuning in this season. Hopefully this was helpful in understanding the markets a little better and understanding how you can use TrendSpider to get an edge in the markets a little better using a lot of different features that we go over every weekend, like raindrops, volume, the gap snake, volume by price, looking at volume gaps, looking at volume shelves, seasonality. All of these things together can really help you get an edge in the market. So if you have not signed up yet, remember we do have the 7-day free trial where you can try out TrendSpider for free. And if you have any questions, as always, reach out to hello@trendspider.com or send us a DM on Twitter. And until next time, we're signing out, and everyone have a good night.